Okay, rooms filling up a bit now. Great. So as I say, anyone just joining us, do please rename yourselves with your full name and organisation in the participant tab there, and do introduce yourselves in the chat there as well. Yeah, nice to see everyone so on time today. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Community Energy Forum with Northern Powergrid. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about local approaches to tackling the energy crisis. So really pertinent topic, you know, when we're thinking about the sort of future of community energy and how that relates to the energy crisis. You know, I think we can all tell with the sort of weather at the moment, the challenges that are coming, you know, not just from a sort of heat and a fuel poverty point of view, but also the challenges with, you know, with a renewable system. And so, yeah, we want to sort of focus this afternoon on how we can take local approaches, how community energy organisations can partner with their local authorities and their councils to make our communities more energy resilient. So yeah, my name's Kai Hoare. I'm from Regen. For anyone who aren't familiar with us, we're a not-for-profit centre of renewable energy expertise, and we've been working on a programme of community energy support with Northern Powergrid for the past 3 years now. So yeah, delighted to have their support for this session this afternoon. Yeah, so we've got a packed agenda for the next 2 hours. If we could just bring that up, Prina. Great. So yeah, just giving everyone a couple of minutes to join the call, and then Anda from Northern Powergrid is going to give us a 10-minute update on some of the things that they've been up to in the community and local energy space since our last Community Energy Forum, which was in person back in March up in York. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from Anda on what Northern Powergrid have been up to, which is quite a lot since March. And then we've got a breakout session, which is really the chance for all of you to ask the questions you want to ask and have those discussions. And we're really keen to sort of theme those discussions and explore more the effective ways that community energy and local authorities can really work together effectively. And that's why we're also delighted to have Vicky from Grimsby Community Energy on the call with us this afternoon. So a bit later on, after we've had a quick tea break, Vicky's going to be talking about what they've been up to over in Grimsby, which is, you know, formed a really effective partnership between Grimsby Community Energy and North East Lincolnshire Council. It's a really good example for any community energy organisations who are looking to build a relationship and deliver things with their council. And then it's sort of, you know, slightly different but related topic. Lee Wells, who's the policy lead at Northern Powergrid, is going to talk to us about connections, and in particular some of the big changes that are coming from April next year, from April 2023, which is to do with Ofgem, the energy regulator, and the rules they set about how much we pay for connecting to the network and how that's all paid for. So yeah, for anyone looking to develop any sort of renewable generation project or a demand project, it's you know, really key changes to look out for. So yeah, we're going to hear from Lee a little bit later on. So you know, really valuable update there. And then at the end of the session, we're really keen. You know, we're Northern Powergrid are thinking about how they can support this sector or the community groups in their region in the future. And we're really keen, as we're working with them to develop their community energy engagement strategy for the next 3 years. We're really keen to get everyone's thoughts on that and how you would like Northern Powergrid to support the sector. So yeah, do please give us your thoughts on that. So yeah, that's our agenda for this afternoon. If we could just take down the slides for a minute there, Prina. So yeah, really keen to get your thoughts as we're going through this afternoon. Do keep sort of talking in the chat, asking questions in there, or raising your hand. So yeah, nice to see everyone on the call, and I will hand over to Anda.
Thank you very much, Kai, and welcome everyone to our December Community Energy and Local Authority Forum. I'm really pleased to see you today, and thank you for giving your afternoon to join us and talk about these topics that are even more topical and even more important in today's climate. In March, we met in person. We hosted our first community energy event in person in York. And during this last forum, many of you said you'd like to be more linked up and engaging more and working more with your local authorities. And you saw a clear benefit in networking and engaging with each other and people and similar organizations around you. Around the same time, and still we have been hearing from BEI's local net zero policy team that they believe the funding available for community energy sector is also available through the growth funds available to local authorities in their area. So kind of based on your interest and the direction the funding for the community energy sector and community energy projects is taking, we thought it would be common sense to bring all of you together today to discuss a local project development and how local authorities and communities can work together to make sure that net zero targets are reached locally and reached as early as possible. Throughout the year and since March, we have also been acting on those points of feedback about greater collaboration and bringing stakeholders together to support the sector. And we've worked more closely with other key supporters for community energy sector, and which include Community Energy England, Net Zero Hub of the Northeastern Yorkshire, as well as organizations that provide funding for community projects like Centrica and Orsted. Also many local groups, Community Energy South, to really drive and continue that fantastic momentum that we've seen in the community energy activity across the Northeast Yorkshire, Northern Lincolnshire. And I think nothing really exemplifies and catalyzes that need and that action to take to work together as the current energy and climate crises affecting us today. I'm really keen to hear what you think and how we can use the power of collaboration to ensure that we have long-term prosperity of local energy and community energy sector and each project within it. And that's the overarching theme for today. At March Forum, we also launched a few initiatives. So we launched additional funding called Net Zero Community Energy Fund, targeted at new climate action and new community energy groups to catalyze that their projects or take their projects to the next stage and allow them to access the capacity they needed. Really pleased to report that we've since been able to support 9 projects with just over £50,000 altogether, and we'll be sharing information about those projects shortly. And our Community Energy Fund will also be opening next year, so keep an eye on our web pages and social media, and also on the Regions page, where you'll find more information about that next year. The other initiative we launched in March was our Put Your Community on the Map campaign. We've launched an interactive map where each of you can add your own organization, a little bit of information about it, and let everyone know that you're out there and help you collaborate and network with organizations that might be in your very nearby vicinity. So that map is still live. You can still add your group if you haven't. You can have a look at what organizations are out in our patch, and maybe some of them are nearby. But we're also talking about how we can use this information and bring it into the national community energy map that Community Energy England have developed, or maybe how we can open up this for other community organizations to add themselves and kind of self-declare a network and use it as a tool on an enduring basis, maybe outside your region as well. 2022 is a key milestone in the activity and all the support and engagement we've had with the community energy sector. Now, while we have been supporting the sector since 2014, many of you will know that we published a community energy engagement strategy in 2020 for the following 3 years that brings us to end of this year. And during this time, we have really seen massive growth and expansion of the local activity and interest in community energy, which has been absolutely amazing and really, really encouraging. In 2020, we took 26 different and discrete commitments to support the community energy sector. I'm really, really pleased to report that we have achieved and delivered on all 26 of those commitments by the end of this year, and we have been delivering some additional ones too. Now, this also kind of brings us to the refresh of the strategy for 2023 to 2025, which we'll go to a little bit later. But this year we commissioned and we worked with Community Energy England on a regional community energy study, and that looked at the sector across the Northeast, Yorkshire and Northern Lincolnshire. The previous study we did was looking at what impact community energy delivered in 2019 and what barriers they faced then. And this study looks at the same in 2021, done as part of the State of the Sector research Community Energy England carry out every year that demonstrates the value of community energy for the policymakers and for everyone in the energy sector. And some really encouraging highlights from that study show that there's been a 130% increase in organizations involved in energy efficiency activities from 2019 to 2021. There's been a 57% increase in organizations involved in low carbon transport. There's been higher growth in the renewable capacity owned by communities than there has been nationally. There has been 55 full-time equivalent jobs created in the community energy sector, which is up from 15 in 2019, and around £500,000 have been saved from people's energy bills last year alone. And the sector has engaged with more than 17,500 people across the region. So that's everything that the community energy sector has delivered in 2021, which is just an astounding growth and impact. And we know that we have seen much more community energy groups and climate action groups appearing across the region. So this study only tracks about 66 of them, and we know that there are more than 80. So in fact, while these numbers are fascinating and really, really positive, we know that they even then are an understatement of the difference that you make locally and as a collective. I'm also really pleased to say that the work that we've been doing with you and for you has been nominated for 2 awards, which are the Utility Week Award for Community Investor and Community Energy England's Community Energy Champion Award. So that's been really encouraging to even be shortlisted and to receive that recognition. But this has also paved the way for recruitment of a team of people that will be looking to support community and local energy activities from next year onwards. So it is really important to recognize that the journey we've been on and the difference and the increase in all of the activities that you were delivering in this period of time and what it means also going forward. It gives us an opportunity to reevaluate, improve and rethink what we are doing. We are therefore consulting on our next community energy strategy for the next 3 years, and also keen to hear of what things we could do more of, better, with somebody, or less of, as there are many ways to deliver the support that the sector needs, and we're keen to play our role and kind of measure up to the demand that we see. So that's why your feedback is really, really keen to shape those activities. as you all know, we take those commitments very seriously. At this moment in time, we are also working through from the final determinations from our regulator, Ofgem, which set out their views on what we can and cannot deliver in ED2 period. So that's our next price control period. This is our plans for the next price control is something that community energy groups, yourselves included, and local authorities have contributed throughout, and we're really, really thankful for that. We know that that you are all really ambitious to achieve net zero as early as possible, and that's why for our next price control plans, we used a planning scenario that allows even the fastest pathways to decarbonisation to become achievable. Now, we know that Ofgem has taken a slightly different planning scenario, a slightly different approach to planning, but we're working out whether that would still allow us to deliver what our stakeholders have asked for. So that is a work in progress. But please know that your voices have been heard throughout that process and have been really invaluable. And we really want to thank you for contributing to this process, and thank you for giving your time, your honest feedback, so that we've been able not only support you directly through this program and our commitments to the sector, but we've also been able to look at your collective feedback and advocate on behalf of the sector and on behalf of the local organizations in our region. So thank you once again for being so active and so engaged on this topic and very supportive in this work. And we hope and look forward to working with you, meeting with you more often in 2023. Thank you.
Great, thanks Andy. Yeah, loads of useful updates there, and plenty that we can get into a bit later on, particularly around the investment that Ofgem allows, and helping us get net zero through connecting stuff to the network, which we can pick up more with Lee, and yeah, also really good to hear there's going to be more funding available next year as well. So yeah, and then so yeah, that all sounds good, and plenty for us to get into this afternoon. So yeah, now we're going to just go into a breakout session for about 35 minutes or so. So we've to make the most of these conversations and encourage us to think about ways that we can to encourage partnerships between community energy organisations and local authorities. We've vaguely split everyone up by the region that you're in, based on your community organisations or your location. So yeah, I'm also aware that there's a bit of overlap in terms of Northern Powergrid's licence areas. There's some places in North Yorkshire that count as being in the northeast, and other places in sort of northeast Lincolnshire that count as being in Yorkshire. So yeah, we split everyone sort of roughly between northeast and Yorkshire regions, but please don't be too offended if you end up in a group that you wouldn't necessarily identify with. So yeah, we're really keen to hear your thoughts on developing these sorts of partnerships, learn what projects you've been up to and what you'd be looking to do, and how Northern Powergrid can support you for those. So yeah, in just a moment, everyone will be going into breakout groups, and then we'll come back for a quick tea break, and then hear from Vicky and Lee a little bit later on as well. Seems like we've got most of you back now. So yeah, really delighted that we're joined by Vicky Dunn from Grimsby Community Energy today. Vicky's been part of that group for a number of years and having a close relationship with the council. So a really good example for any community energy organisations that are looking to build that relationship and deliver projects with their local authority. So yeah, delighted to be joined by her, and I will hand over to you, Vicky.
There, I managed to unmute before I opened my mouth, so that's a good sign. So thanks for the introduction. I don't know if it's as great as all that, but we've done our best. As explained a little in the breakout session, Grimsby Community Energy formed in 2016, and we followed the fairly standard route of community share offers, as a community benefit society to get members to invest and get money for solar panels on our various buildings. So we've got 6 buildings as of now, and about 200 kilowatts spread across those. So what Kai and colleagues have asked me to talk about is the Smarter Energy NEL project. So running across the little constellation of logos at the bottom, we're funded by the Shared Prosperity Fund, which we're currently in year 1 of that, and year 2 of the Shared Prosperity Fund starts next end of March, start of April, and year 3 correspondingly in 2024. And this is supposed to be the money that comes from the UK government for the purpose of levelling up areas which are considered to need levelling up. And it's distributed by the local councils in accordance to what they believe the priorities are. So our council is North East Lincolnshire Council. So we were part of the pilot projects from the pilot fund, which was called Community Renewal. And due to timescales and not wanting to run another process for people to apply and be considered and things that would take some months, the council took the decision to make year 1 of Shared Prosperity Fund. North East Lincolnshire Council decided they'd run it over from Community Renewal to Shared Prosperity. And what I believe is going to happen is that our local council is going to ask the community to put in expressions of interest, and the ones that they are in, that they like, the council will ask for full applications. So it's a competitive programme for years 2 and 3. I must confess, I don't know what any of your council areas will be doing. I just know that the money's there and the indicators are there. So I'll tell you a bit about what we've been doing, because you may be able to do something similar. And then I'll show you the output indicators, because you can have a look to see the full scope of what you might be able to provide to your council. So the last 2 logos I've not mentioned, I know obviously ours, Grimsby Community Energy, eFactor Business, who are the bigger partner in this project and who have been for about 13 years providing business support to small and medium enterprises in the area through all sorts of funding. And together we've delivered this Smarter Energy NEL project. So if you click us onto the next slide, please. So it's the council that are managing the shared prosperity funds for the borough, and their commitment, as well as sort of bringing the money from government in a contract with government and then having a contract with us and eFactor, weekly delivery meetings with the sort of the client representative, and convening a monthly project board from the partners plus some others of the great and the good. So operationally, there's myself and a colleague, we've had our time paid for part-time to work on this project, plus eFactor colleagues attend the delivery meetings, and then there's a monthly board which some of our board members have kindly attended. And we've also been able to have office space, which is nice, to not work off our kitchen tables and in cafes, etc. We've had proper space to work with meeting rooms and such like. So eFactor and Grimsby Community Energy have both got a contract with the council to deliver these outputs. So if you move on. So what does Smarter Energy offer? Fully funded energy audits. We've got some consultants to do that, but, and this may be something that a lot of you can offer, myself through GCE can do the smaller ones and the more simple calculations. So we've been able to add value and just keep the consultants for the large complicated buildings and the industrial ones. So then we've offered 40% grant funding to small businesses. It says up to, because it's ratioed to the carbon savings. So solar gets a bit less. A nice simple LED lighting project will probably get bang on 40%. And we've also done workshops, networking, and tried to involve our local installers and assist them to better get involved in it. Some of them don't need any help whatsoever, but some of them find it quite useful to get feedback on how it's going and what opportunities are out there. So that's what our particular project offered. Next slide, please. Now, there wasn't much way to make this easier to read, but I guess the slides can be shared afterwards. So the hyperlink, if somebody could drop that in the chat, that is where this is taken from, and it defines all the outputs and outcomes which the Shared Prosperity Fund is willing to pay for. So if organisations say we can deliver a few dozen of these in a cost-effective way, and all the paperwork can be organised and done in the proper manner to prove it was done, then thanks, Kai, then that's what the sort of things that the councils will enter into a contract for. So some of the ones we've got is enterprises that have received grants. That's sort of fairly obvious what that means. Enterprises which have received non-financial support with the intention of proving performance, and that's got to be directly. Reductions in cost and increases in turnover and profit. So that is where, from the point of view, if they can have insulation, reflective film for their windows, boiler controls, solar, low energy lighting. I think some have had improved compressors, variable speed drives for equipment in factories, hot water tank. We've found some dreadful old hot water tank that could be much improved. Anything like that that the business can get the report about, or go on workshops or have one-to-one advice, that's the sort of thing that's counted there. And there's also a metric for producing decarbonisation plans. And if we can move on to the next one, some of the other things. So you might be thinking, how does this relate to community energy? Because it's more like business support and not so much in the community. Through working in this project, GCE have been able to meet new potential host sites, which will feature in our 4th community share offer. And also, I really do hope this turns out to be true, but I believe it to be true, that we've increased our profile and our networks, particularly on LinkedIn, where we were least active before. We were more on Facebook, but that's sort of dying away, and I'm not too sure about Twitter these days either. But we're definitely doing a lot more on LinkedIn, and I hope that's going to translate into an easier fundraising for our next community share offer. We've tended to work more with the community sector organisations that have applied for help through the programme, and let our partners go more to the commercial ones. We've got a bit of a specialism there. Specifically, we've had 2 staff, myself, Rob, who works with me, working part-time on the project, and also our representatives on the board. So we're deepening our connections there. And all of us on Smarter Energy work as one team to do this project. There's none of kind of, oh, this one's mine and this one's yours. We all muck in. So that is where it relates to community energy, but it's been a great opportunity for us to find some new sites and to grow ourselves, because I don't think we'll be doing this all the time, but we've certainly been doing a lot of it this year, and it's a good step in the growth of community energy organisations, perhaps. Next slide, please. So here's our other output. I think this one should have, the slides are in the, should have been one before the other. So we've got outputs and outcomes. I think the outputs happen and then the outcomes are results of those. And we've got tons of CO2 saved in a given year. So if a community energy organisation was able to implement projects of some kind where you could measure CO2 savings, then you'd be able to report this. What we keep a very close eye on in the team, and I have in other projects, is how many pounds are you spending to save each tonne? And if you've got a good idea on that, like lighting projects are cheap, solar projects are a little bit more expensive. I think the chap said earlier about he'd found the wind projects were the most cost effective, but I've not had the luxury of doing one of those yet. Keeping a close eye on delivery and value for money is important there. And we've also got this one, firms bringing a new to the firm technology or process. Solar has been a typical one for this, but there's a few, other businesses bringing in odd ones. So this is another one of the definitions we can tick. Next slide, please. So suggestions for how it might work with your council. And I don't know sort of how it's done in your areas. And some of you have said there's sort of restructure going on, so possibly the council doesn't know how it's being done while it's doing all of that. So find out from their website what their process is and what the deadlines are. So that should be on the website. There's likely to be an email list to get updates. And I know in this area they've done webinars and face-to-face events in the town hall where all of the local organisations can turn up and hear what it is that they need to do to bid into this funding. Also, do have a look at this link and have a look what outputs your project could deliver. I think some of you will be interested in there's outputs and outcomes for domestic energy assistance and working with households rather than businesses, and also even tree planting and diverse other activities. So have a look and see which ones. I really don't know if they're ones that your local council will accept, but that's something to find out as part of the process. And at least if you can go to them and say, look, we can deliver these 3 outputs for you. Are you interested in a bid? Then you're part of the way there. And I would also check, is there a local partner you could work with which would reduce admin and add value? So I would say for GCE, it's been ideal and really good to work with a partner who can help us with office space, and also we can work together on doing some of the paperwork and the claim and having other people who know about those processes to work with. But definitely joint bids are ones which seem to interest the council, at least in our area. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. No, I've taken that one off. That's at an end then. So anything I can clarify or say more about, very happy.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Becky. I think really great tips on there for how people can approach their councils and work with them and get funding and things like that. So yeah, we do have a few minutes. If anyone has any questions for Vicky, feel free to either raise your hand as Tony's done there, or pop your question in the chat, whichever works for you. But yeah, do use that raise hand function if you want to say your question. So yeah, Tony. You're on mute, Tony.
Thanks. Regarding community share offers, can I ask you in Grimsby what kind of how many investors would you have had in your share offers, and what kind of range of investments would they have made?
So we've got some pie charts in our share offer documents which are on our websites, and we know the typical investment is just above £1,000, but a lot of people seem to put 1,000 in. There must be something about 4 figures, but only just that sticks in the mind. And we know that our earlier share offers, our first 2, probably because we worked with Share Energy, we got more people from away, and our later share offer, we got more people close to home. So we're about 50-50 between sort of northeast Lincolnshire and Hull, which you might consider sort of our, within 50 miles. And then you see, you've got some in Wales or Scotland or wherever. But it does vary an awful lot. The other advice I was given is try to get organisations in, because if you can get an organisation, say, your local co-op or another big community benefit society that does something in your area, and you can get them to put in, then you don't have so many sort of little investments to find, because you can get some bigger chunks.
And what kind of sums did you manage to raise from those offers?
So the first ones the first 2 combined, we raised 115,000, and then we raised about 70. We got a COVID grant, which seemed really odd, but we got a COVID grant and they said we were definitely eligible, so that gave us 10 grand head start. And so in total, about 160, 170,000 in total, and the new ones which we're looking at are sort of that and more. I don't know quite how big the next one will be, because that depends on the grid connection offer, but we'll find out when we do. So that's why I'm hoping the additional profile we've built up sort of balances out for the fundraising, and if not, well, we'll set an achievable minimum and we'll at least do that.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Cheers, Tony. Yeah, were there any other questions for Vicky on any of that? Yeah, Rich.
Yeah, very impressed with this organisation that you've worked with, this eFactor. Now, can you tell us a bit more about them? How are they funded? And I'm not aware of anything like that around our neck of the woods, but maybe I've just not looked for it. Do you know anything more about the background and how?
Know a little. My colleagues will probably smile because I'm representing them, not me. So I think there was something called LEGI funding, local enterprise something, 12 to 13 years ago. And what the founders did, which was wise, was they put it into property, so they'd always have income, and funding might come and go and pay for business advisors to deliver these outputs or these grants or these kind of programs. But whatever the sort of fashions and coming and going of funding, they always had that rental income. So they've steadily increased that over the years. Like the unit I'm sat in is E26. So if I step out the front door, you know, there's a picture framer, a gym, a dog food shop, an electrician's, all kinds of small businesses in front of us, and they've got other premises too dotted around the area. So I think what they've steadily done over the years is they've always had business advisors, networking clubs, workshops, and had a steady pool of people that whatever funding comes along, they can tweak it and use it to their benefit. But they got our solar panels in 2016 and did help us get established, and we've always remained members of the business hive. So at least we've always got the hot desk base and the option of attending any useful workshops and things that come by.
Great, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Vicky. Really interesting to hear more about those local organisations that you're working with. Any other questions for Vicky before we move on? Just raise your hand if there are any. But no, if not, then yeah, thanks very much, Vicky. That was really useful insight and great sort of practical advice there for how people can approach their councils and the sorts of things people can look to work on. So yeah, as we've mentioned, we will be sharing the slides after the session, as well as putting the recording up on our website in the next few days. So do have a look at those slides that Vicky's gone through, and the link that we've put in the chat there as well. But yeah, thanks a lot, Vicky, for joining us. Okay, so now we're moving on to our sort of second and final presentation of the afternoon. Before we, as mentioned, look for your feedback and thoughts on what Northern Powergrid can do to support community energy organisations. But yeah, at the moment we're going to hear from Lee Wells, who's the policy lead at Northern Powergrid. And there's been, particularly in my breakout, there was a bit of talk around network connections and the difficulties that the community renewables projects can have in getting connected to the grid. And now for the past few years, Ofgem, who are the energy regulator, been through a process called a significant code review. So that's called SCR in sort of industry speak, and this is looking at network access and forward-looking charges. So basically how much we pay to access the network, to connect to it, both through generation projects like solar and wind, and demand, so stuff like heat pumps, electric vehicle charges, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a little bit of background, and those changes through that SCR will come into play from April next year, so just a few months away, and that looks like it'll change sort of the cost structure that's involved with getting a network connection. So yeah, hopefully that's reasonably clear to everyone. But yeah, really pleased that we're joined by Lee, who can go through that in much more detail. And we will have a little bit of time after Lee's presentation for questions. But if we don't get to you, and if there are any others as we're going through through Lee's presentation, do feel free to pop them in the chat. And if we can't get to them before 4 o'clock, then we can respond to them over the next few days. So yeah, over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Kai. Hopefully you can hear us after technical issues yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, Kai set the scene really nicely in terms of what this is and why Ofgem is doing it. But if we just go up the next slide, please. I'll just say from the off, it's complicated. It really is. I'm going to try and keep it really high level. There are other sessions, there's a plug to it at the end here for going into it a bit more detail with some stuff we're doing at the ANA, and I'm happy to take anything offline because I don't expect everyone to come away understanding this. If anyone's been following it, you've got a decent chance, but it ain't the easiest thing to digest. So I will do my best, and please bear with me. So Ofgem have been looking at this since 2017, quite late in 2017 to be fair to them, but it gives you the feel for just how long this has been going on. They published a final policy decision in May 2022, and that was at least 6 months later than they said it would. So we're very much running a race where the goalpost hasn't moved, but we've been told to do a 400-meter sprint in the time we get for a 100-meter sprint. Basically, it's been fast-tracked, to say the least, trying to do this in order to implement it for April next year. So the thing it tried to address was barriers to connection in terms of costs and getting customers connected quicker to our network. It did originally have a wider scope than the 2 points at the bottom there. It was eventually de-scoped largely to deliver what we can do. So it removed elements looking at use of system charges, so the charges that you pay once you're connected and using our network, which we levy on electricity suppliers typically. It de-scoped it to remove that from the access SCR, and that's going to be in its own SCR next year. So the two things that it covers, like at the bottom of the slide, connection charges, so what the customer pays to connect to our network, and then access arrangements, so how a customer can access our network and when. And it's about a standardized common approach to a type flexible connection is in summary what access rights are. So I'll come back to these in a bit more detail, though hopefully it'll make more sense. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So I mentioned on the last slide, two things are changing, but it's covered in three main areas. Point 3 is really linked to point 1. So connection boundary, this is the boundary between how much we as the DNO pay compared to how much you or anyone as the connectee to our network pays. So that's what the boundary is. When you hear the boundary reference, it's a boundary between when the costs tip from us paying and us being costs be socialized across our customer base. So anyone in Yorkshire will pay for costs for someone connected in any other part of Yorkshire, where these costs tip into the DNO will pay bucket. And then access rights, I've already mentioned, this is talking about the common approach to a type of flexible connection, a curtailable connection as it's called. I'll explain it a bit more. Key thing here was getting some really clearly defined common standard ways of doing it. So it's a really niche type of access arrangement, basically. So if you imagine a customer wants 100 kVA, comes to our network and we say, comes to Connect, sorry, and we say, we can't give you 100 kVA. Sorry, we can't give you 100 kVA now, but how about you connect and accept 80? We can connect you much quicker. You can have 80. You might be able to get 100 sometimes, but what we're going to do is say, over so many hours in a 12-month period, you might have to accept that we're going to drop you down to 80. Might not be always 80, might be 90 sometimes, but we'll come with a limit which says, for example, 100 hours of the year, you will be dropped down to 80. But it gets them connected quicker. There will be an end date as to when they'll get access to the full 100 that they want. Then you've got speculative development. Now, I say this is linked into the connection boundary. Speculative development is basically a way of protecting, like I mentioned, you connect in one part of Yorkshire or the northeast, everyone else in the region pays for it. It's a way of protecting customers from paying too much. Speculative developments are typically where someone comes along and wants capacity of X, but doesn't really justify it, hasn't necessarily got customers lined up to connect and use that capacity. So we'd say, well, we're just providing infrastructure here. So it would be something classed as a speculative development. Basically means you pay more to connect to the network. It's a deterrent. It doesn't necessarily always deter, but it's there to make sure people don't fund speculative developments. And the changes are to bring in a really common approach to assessing what is speculative, because it's different across all the different DNO regions. Next slide, please. The key thing to point out at the bottom of that, which I'll keep reiterating as I go. Implementation date is 1st April 2023. That means applications made from that date. If an application's been made before then, these rules will not change it. So in terms of who pays for what then, I mentioned really you've got two ways of funding connection costs, which are either we pay as the DNO and then for all our customers pay, or the connectee pays. So really simple, the boundary is that tipping point. Nothing really, don't need to go any more detail on that slide. If we move on to the next one, please. So this hopefully makes it a little bit clearer. So the strap line, if you could call it that, is basically on a like-for-like basis, a connecting customer will pay less. So that's not always the case. There are some exceptions to the rules, and it only applies to certain costs, but we'll come back to that. If you think of it in terms of a customer connecting to our network, there will be sole use assets. That might be a cable to connect you to a local substation. So only you as the connectee will use that. And there are shared assets. So anything that needs to accommodate that cable at the substation that everyone else will use, or at a high voltage network, they're shared use assets. The like-for-like reduction is on the costs associated with the shared use, the reinforcement of our network. So that's where things are cheaper from applications we receive on the 1st of April, not now. You would still pay 100% for the cable, for the sole use assets. That's not changing. But yeah, if you think of shared and sole use, it'll hopefully help from the message home. So ultimately, it means that we'll recover less from the connecting customers. We'll recover more through our GWOS charge as a result. So we need funded through our price control settlement to make sure that we can get the money back that connected customers are no longer going to have to pay for. The fourth bullet there talks about this threshold. Again, these are protections to make sure that generality of customers aren't paying more than they need to. You might hear it referred to as a high cost project threshold or a high cost cap. The gist of it being you express everything as a kind of all-in-one unit cost. And then if the cost of providing the connection is over that, it basically means the connecting customer has to pay more. So for example, there is, you can see on the slide there, £200 per kilowatt hour for generators. That's already in place now. There's going to be an introduction of a one for a demand connection at £1,720 per kVA. This has never been more important than it will do from the 1st of April, considering we're making things cheaper for customers. So we're trying to protect the generality of customers from paying for unnecessary costs. So if you think of a generation customer, so a wind farm comes along and says, right, I want 100 kVA, multiply that by 200, you've got £20,000. Any reinforcement which costs up to £20,000, customer doesn't need to worry about it. Beyond typical arrangements, anything above £20,000, the customer would pay for in full. That's the gist of the threshold. Things that won't change, I've already mentioned the extension assets, the sole use assets, that cable to connect the substation, pay for that in full still, and reinforcement where there's exceptions or speculative development. I'll not go into the exceptions, but there are exceptions to the rules is the key thing to take away. And in terms of the graph, really all I would describe it as the customer, how much the customer pays the connectee is defined by the red bars. On the left, you've got the arrangements as they stand now. It doesn't matter whether you're a demand customer or a generator, you pay the same. On the right side of the graph, you can see that it changes. The boundary is different between demand and generation. Demand customers will typically only ever pay for the extension assets, the cable. generation customers will pay for the cable, but they'll also pay for a contribution towards reinforcement at the voltage they're connecting to. So if they connect at the LV voltage, they'd pay for reinforcement at that. Anything above that, they wouldn't pay for. So that's just what the graph's trying to show. If we move on to the next slide, please. So this is the more complicated part of the reform as far as I'm concerned. So this is access rights. This is moving away from excuse me, undefined 24/7 access, which basically what people have unless they have a defined flexible arrangement. You don't ever get 100% guarantee of electricity supply. Simple as that. There are weather events, there are faults, and we will never guarantee 100% supply. You have some customers who connect with double circuits. So if one feeder goes down, you get, it'll automatically switch you to the other feeder. Some customers connect on single circuits. Again, there's no guarantee of 24/7, 365 access. It doesn't quite happen. But what the access rights change is meant to do is bring in a way of a very standard approach to getting something which is less than 24/7. So like I say, the premise of it is to connect people quicker, possibly cheaper. So it introduces curtailable access. So it's a curtailable connection. It's going to be a new form of a connection agreement with us. It will not impact existing users. So if we have a non-defined flexible type of connection now, so we've got active network management schemes, or we've got some customers who will just simply not be able to use what they want because of the arrangements, bespoke arrangements with the DNO. They will stay on those, right? That their connection will not change. They would have to make a new application for anything to be different. So the common thing that it's trying to introduce, there's a list of the new measures there. So if I go back to that example where the customer wants 100 and we can only give them 80, and I mentioned that we might be able to give them, we might say to them, right, 100 hours during the year is when we'll take you down from 100 to no less than 80. We have to be able to commonly calculate what the equivalent of that 100 hours is and what the 80 is. So we have to come up with a common way of assessing what the curtailment limit is. We have to measure it in a consistent way. If we're going to exceed that limit, we have to make sure that we're obliged under reasonable endeavours to try and procure flexibility such that it doesn't happen. If it does happen, we've got to let the customer know that it's going to happen. If we're too late, we've got to let them know that it has happened. And if it has happened, we have to pay the customer. So basically they're not providing free flexibility. We will pay them for the unfortunate situation where we've had to curtail them beyond the contractual agreement that we've made with them. So we'll have all sorts of common requirements for reporting to the customer. And key thing will be, there will be a date in an agreement which says, at this point in time, we will have reinforced our network and you will have 100% access to what you want. So that customer that wanted 100, we could only give them 80, we'll get 100. There are exceptions to that because the customer might not ever want it. It might not be willing to pay for the costs to reinforce the network. So a customer can stay on these arrangements on an enduring basis. Excuse me. So what does it exclude? Well, this is a really big statement, and this definition in the footnote of the slide doesn't apply to a small user. So it typically won't apply to small, to domestic customers or small non-domestic. So your typical household up to corner shop type or news agents won't be able to apply for these curtailable connections. It comes down to what type of meter you have and how we invoice your supplier. So it's a little bit unclear. And when we are saying to you, right, well, over 100 hours in the year, we might have to curtail you from that 100 to the 80. If that curtailment is because of an interruption, a fault on our network, or if it's because the transmission network is causing the problem, it doesn't count towards that 100 hours, basically. And if we just move on to the last slide, please. So all I really wanted to say on here is we've Ofgem set the policy decision. To implement it, we've had to go and change our contractual obligations, which are set out in the DCUSA, the Distribution Connection User System Agreement. We've submitted changes to Ofgem for a decision, which we're expecting hopefully this week. But Ofgem, it's basically marking our homework. Have we delivered what they asked us to? And there's a plug for an ANA event on the 20th. So the Energy Networks Association, we're going to do some stakeholder engagement to get these messages across in more detail about what's changing. So on the 20th, we've got what will be quite a high level overview, far more detailed than what I've just went into, but there's going to be a high level overview of what the reform is. And then we're going to follow this up in January with another one. So if you're interested, if you think this might impact you, I recommend you get involved, please, but also happy to catch up separately.
Great, thanks for that, Lee. Yeah, really useful run through of a very complex topic. So yeah, I think you did well to cover that quite a bit in 15 minutes. So yeah, obviously there is a lot to get into there. You know, this seemingly endless pages of consultations and reports from Ofgem to read on this. But as Lee said, if anyone is interested, I would recommend they do join that ENA event next week. But we do have just a couple of minutes if there were any questions for Lee. I'm aware it's quite a lot to get your head around. So yeah, if anyone wants to go away and think about that and has questions later down the line, then more than welcome to. But yeah, Richard.
Yeah, sorry, me again. It's not really about the significant code review, but it's just a question about curtailment in general. Perhaps you could help me understand something. So let's say I'm putting up a wind turbine in the grounds of my extensive mansion property in North Yorkshire. And you've said, okay, we've got to offer you a curtailed connection. You know, it's a megawatt, right? It's, you know, got that much space. Perhaps I've married a celebrity or something. But you're only offering me, you know, say, okay, well, it's half the time you can only export 800 kilowatts. You said that you would let me know if it had already happened. So that implies that the curtailment event would have happened without any kind of action on my part to sort of turn it down. So can you describe to me what happens in that situation? My wind turbine is pushing out current, it's pushing out amps, and your substation is not receiving them. What happens there?
So do you mean in terms of how we would go about curtailing you as opposed to?
Exactly.
Right, okay, so that's not prescribed, as in typically what we do for these schemes is we'd have a little black box which does all the clever stuff and would automatically make sure, would stop you having access to our network without us doing anything. This needs to be far more involved. There is nothing prescriptive say we need to have any physical control equipment. It could be as simple as us just asking you to do something. We'd have to know if you'd responded. What I would expect to happen is there will be some kind of equipment in there where we would send a signal to it, but it needs to be responsive to a signal from an instruction. Sorry, not a signal. We have to instruct it to do something, and we can only instruct it to do so much. It can't respond if we've agreed with you, right? We'll curtail that example that I said before, where it's 100, and you asked for 100, we said you can have 80, and we'll do that over 100 hours of the year. The instruction has to be within those rules. It can't constrain you down automatically 150 hours. It can't take it all away from you. So it has to be a little bit cleverer than something which is just kind of thinking autonomously without any instruction from us, because there's a very clearly defined set of rules as to what we need to do. So it has to be far more of an involved process. So you should be kept informed the whole way through. But I would expect ultimately there will be a bit of equipment which we can send an instruction to it, and it will just force the access or lack of access on you because of a result of that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you. That's fine. Yeah, just gubbins is the answer, really.
Great, thanks, Lee. Yeah, Tony, I think you were next with your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, me again. Can I ask Lee, regarding connection charges, how do these changes relate to the provisions in the local electricity bill? Do they, in a sense, predate it, or quite how do they relate? Are they different?
Tony, I'll be honest, I don't know what the local energy bill says to help you out. So I'm happy to help you out after this to try and understand The rules are just a kind of blanket. Any connection charges that are levied by us have to follow this new set of rules. But perhaps I need to do a bit more homework to help you out there.
Cheers. Like, yeah, I mean, so Tony, the local electricity bill does refer to retail supply, so that's a different thing to network connections. So it is kind of a separate issue. And obviously, is that still in Parliament? I believe that's obviously not in law and not something that's currently being considered by Ofgem, as I understand it. So that's good. You know, this is obviously related in a lot of ways, but is a separate issue as far as this process goes. But yeah, I'm sure that's definitely a separate conversation we can have further down the line.
Okay.
Cheers. Yeah, Amy, do you have a question?
Hi. I work with Energy Local, and the whole point in the markets we create is that it takes energy usage away from peak times and also keeps energy local. So for small scale renewables, whatever's produced is we help the community to use most of it, as much of it as they can. So we're looking at how that could help with, I can't find you, it's just moved. I'm trying to see who I'm talking to. So we're trying to see how that could help with connection applications, where there is a constraint, and possibly including like a trip, so that we don't think that it would go too high, but if it did, it would trip out from the local generator. Is that likely to help with applications?
So do you mean to help up with an application to get on?
To get a connection at all for a new generator.
So if you're, well, I should probably cover it. I'm not sure how we're going to make this. Well, what I would expect was when you apply, there's going to be a little tick box which says, "Are you interested in a curtailable connection?" So there'll be information explaining what one is. So that the fact that you would be interested in being one, in having an arrangement where you could connect quicker, but accept that you won't always get what you want 100% of the time. That's a big plus in terms of getting that connection to begin with. You have to be, you can't be the small user, the domestic or non-domestic, small non-domestic premises typically. So that would rule you out for being eligible. But assuming that was fine, there has to be something which is really horrible to say, a network benefit. So you can't just want a curtailable connection and it not actually provide any benefit to us as the network operator for having given you one.
Yeah, so would the benefit be that we're trying to spread usage away from peak times? That benefit the DNO?
It's unfortunately something Ofgem didn't define for us. So we're wrestling at the minute trying to define what this means.
Right.
In simple terms, I would look at it, it would have to be a case of, we'd have to be able to connect you quicker than the benefit would be, well, to you. So the network benefit is getting you connected quicker, i.e. it would have to be quicker for us to give you a curtailable connection than it would do for us to give you 100% of what you need. So that would have to be a simple tick in the box. We might be looking at kind of societal benefits in terms of that we just might want more low carbon technologies on our network. That we can look at it like that. It has to be a case where there's a rule in the contract which would say if the cause of the reinforcement was because of fault level reinforcement or for reactive power reinforcement, then there's no network benefit. It's something I'm probably going to have to come back with in terms of setting out exactly when the eligibility was. But a major thing would be that you're actually interested in having this, because if the customer's not interested, then we might not have the discussion which says, look, this is something you can benefit from.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's not really a clear answer.
No, but it's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right.
Great, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Lee. Cheers, Amy. Yeah, so if there are any other questions that you've got for Lee as you sort of think about this and how it might impact your projects that you're looking to develop, do feel free to drop any of those in the chat and we can pick those up a little bit down the line. But yeah, as Lee says, if you are interested in learning a bit more about this, we've had a high level run through this afternoon, but if you are interested, join that ENA webinar next week, and there's, you know, we will send out a link to that and other bits you can read on this. But yeah, in the meantime, thanks very much to Lee for joining us and sharing that really valuable insight. Okay, great. So yeah, thanks for that, everyone, and your questions as well. Just in the last bit of this afternoon session, before we wrap up in about 15 minutes time, we're really keen to get everyone's thoughts and input on what Northern Powergrid can do to support the sector, to support your sort of community energy organisation or other local energy groups. As Andy mentioned earlier, they're looking to refresh this community energy engagement strategy for across the next 3 years. So yeah, we're really keen to get everyone's thoughts on that. We've put together a little poll on Menti, so if everyone could just click on the link that I've just dropped into the chat there, that should take you straight to this. Or if you're on, so this can work on another window on your computer, or it works really well on a mobile device as well. So you can, if you just go onto menti.com and enter that code or scan the QR code, or do click on the link that I've dropped in the chat, any of those ways can take you through it. So yeah, as I mentioned, you know, Northern Powergrid are looking at refreshing this strategy and their approach to supporting the sector. So really want your thoughts on how they can best support community and local energy. So we did, a few weeks ago, I think we sent out a little bit of a short survey to people asking what sorts of things you'd like to see in that strategy, which is why so from that picked up just a few themes that came out of that as a result, and these were some of them. So what I'd be really keen to know is sort of the priority that these have to people in terms of how you can get supported and what you'd like to see from Northern Powergrid. So, you know, I'm aware there's a lot of overlap with these, which is why, you know, we're asking you to rank them rather than just picking one or two first choices. So yeah, you know, there's different options on there. Really interested to know what sort of support people need. You know, what are the barriers you're coming up against when you're trying to develop projects, and yeah, what sort of support do you need? After this, there's a more open question where yeah, we'd be keen to get additional thoughts. But yeah, at the moment, just keen to know what everyone's priority would be on this. So yeah, hopefully everyone's able to get onto that. As I said, I've put the link in the chat there. So do click on that, or if you're on a different device, if you just go to menti.com on a browser and enter that code that's on there just at the top, 5291277. So yeah, do let us know what your in terms of these themes that came out when we've asked you all previously, what sort of things you'd like Northern Powergrid to prioritize. Just yeah, I'd be keen to get everyone's thoughts on what the relative priorities of those could be.
Rich has put in the chat that to get to the ranking exercise, which is the first question we have, he had to go through the slides we presented today. So I guess we'll give people a moment on this, but I think they can still complete that in the next 2 minutes, and as we move into next question. So for those who are still trying to find their way, you might need to click next a few times to kind of go through the slides that we've seen today.
Yeah, thanks, Ander. Yeah, apologies to Rich and everyone else for a lot of clicking there. Yeah, we were trying to make the Community Energy Forum a bit more high tech, but these things often don't quite work how you think they will. Okay, so I'll just give everyone another minute or two to get onto that. As I said, these are just some of the themes that have come up when we've asked you at previous sessions, and in a survey that we sent out, what your sort of priority would be, around some of the barriers that you're facing to do local energy projects. We've got a more open question on the next slides as well, where you can give us some more of your thoughts as well. But yeah, that's really interesting to know that yeah, more technical support. You know, we've done training sessions in the past, which I encourage everyone to check out, and we can send links around to those afterwards. But yeah, I think as we've heard a little bit, network connections is a key issue that people are coming up against.
Yeah, that's right. We've had 4 training sessions that we hosted, and the recordings of those are available from our community energy page, so from our website. And this, in fact, was something that you've asked for, and you said you needed more of. So I'm pleased to see that there's still appetite around that. This wasn't one of our 26 commitments, and it was something that we kind of committed to and did additionally to those things that we set out in our initial strategy, which we're looking to refresh now. So if there's something very specific, we're always really keen to hear from you, because this sector doesn't stand still, and a lot of things are moving and will be moving over the next few years as well.
Yeah, cheers, Ander. So yeah, as Ander said, there is bits that's available to check out, and yeah, interesting that the funds and support is still coming through quite strongly there. And as Ander said, there will be another round of that Net Zero Community Energy Fund from Northern Powergrid next year. So do look out for that, and look for that. Just as we say that, it takes first place. Okay, just in the interest of time, we will also leave this open and send a link around to anyone who doesn't have the chance to do it before we wrap up this session, where you can continue to add your thoughts. But yeah, keen to know from anyone else, you know, how you'd like Northern Powergrid to support community and local energy. I can see a lot of you have begun adding your thoughts in there already, which is great. So yeah, I'll just give everyone a minute to add any other thoughts you might have in there. So yeah, I think I can see funding has come up a little bit there. Yeah, cheers, Prina. If we can just scroll down a little bit. I think, you know, working with diverse communities, I think that's a really interesting one. We did a training session back in September on public engagement and beginning to look at like how can you know, community energy engage the sort of the non-usual suspects. I think is how someone put it. Obviously that's a conversation that is ongoing. I know there's, you know, a lot of focus from the wider sort of community energy sector, Community Energy England as well, and how to make the sector more diverse and bring different people, different sort of expertise levels into community energy. So yeah, that's really interesting one to see. Yeah, grid connections, again, you know, similar theme to what Lee was talking about before. Linking projects in nearby areas, as Ander mentioned, there's that map on the Northern Powergrid Community Energy page that's a looking, you know, at a way to facilitate that. But yeah, always more that that can be done to link projects. So yeah, other interesting things on there. So yeah, sorry, Ander.
Sorry, Kai. I'm just reading this with you, and I think that it's interesting to see that part of this, not everything, but part of this is some of the things that we do to a certain degree, and some that we do already. So I think the participants of this forum probably would benefit looking at a progress update. So we're preparing a progress update of what we've delivered against our strategy and for the community sector across the last 3 years, and maybe finding some of those sources to the regional map and to the corporate volunteering options as well.
Yeah, cheers, Ander. So yeah, definitely opportunity to look at what else has been done, and there's bits there that we'll be sending round afterwards. So yeah, and this is just a question on you know, any other organisations. You know, we've spoken about how Northern Powergrid can help these help the sector, but there's yeah, other bits on what other organisations can do. You know, there's the North Eastern Yorkshire Net Zero Hub, for example. There's other utilities, there's local authorities, as we've been talking about today. So yeah, interesting that's come up again. So yeah, just moving to the next one. This is something that I guess throughout the last couple of years we've been discussing at various times, whether there's a need for a you know, a specific regional organisation or network rather for community energy across the north of England, or you know, northeast in Yorkshire in particular. So yeah, interesting to see that there is an appetite for that. That's I think when we're talking about local approaches, that is something that can be key. And in other areas where community energy has managed to thrive and really become a strong sector, it is those local networks that do help it. But interesting that there's one person who thinks that the other networks that are out there at the moment are sufficient. And then so next one is just interested in anyone's thoughts in whether they'd be interested in helping to run this sort of thing. I know there's various sort of networks that are sort of being created at the moment, so I know it's always an issue that it takes someone sort of from the sector to help drive these things and help lead them. So interested, there's a few people who'd be interested in supporting that. So I think we might follow up with you guys later on for whoever's ticked yes for that. But interesting. There's a few people who doesn't say no but would like to be involved. So nice that no one's just given us a straight no there. And just finally, really keen to get everyone's thoughts on the session today. What you'd like to see of future ones. We base all of these sessions with Northern Powergrid based on what you want to hear about. We've, as Anza mentioned, we've ran training sessions over the last couple of years, and they've all been a result of specific topics that people have told us they want to learn more about. So network connections have come up quite a bit. If there's something specific you'd want to know more about that for a session, do let us know. So and always keen to know which bit you liked hearing about most. And then do let us know which topics you'd like to cover. I know funding always does tend to come up in this, so that is certainly something we can look at specifically when that next round of funding is brought out. So retrofit is there. We did do a session with Northern Powergrid and Carbon Co-op. So Jonathan from Carbon Co-op, who leads their people powered retrofit program, joined us for a training session back in June. So the recording of that is up online. And I would encourage everyone to go and have a look at that if you weren't able to join us at the time. So we'll share a link to that in the follow-up email tomorrow. So do have a look at that. A&M, that's an interesting one around connections as well. Big solar co-op, I know is an interesting model people are looking at the moment. Different bits around land as well. I think that's sort of linked very much to working with local councils and looking for suitable sites for renewables projects. Okay, so as those keep coming in, we'll leave these questions open, and anyone can go and add their thoughts in their own time as well. But thank you all for your feedback on that. That's really appreciated and much valued. And just leaves it to me really to thank all of our speakers this afternoon. So thanks to Anda and to Lee and to Vicky as well for sharing her perspective. Anda, was there anything you wanted to add just before we wrap up?
Thank you, Kai. First of all, I want to kind of say massive thank you for everyone who joined us today. We managed to cover a lot of ground today and very different topics. Thank you for staying all the way through the session into this until the very end. In such great numbers. There were couple of things I wanted to quickly mention. One is that we've really had the privilege to be able to hear from groups and organizations all across the region about what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and what support you need. So the fact that we are delivering certain activities to support you today is also something that we're really looking into, and how that can be brought into how that can be still made relevant kind of from 2023 onwards, which is our the exercise that we're going through just now. But we're also always keen to hear from you for certain things that work or certain barriers that you're facing, so we are able to continue advocating on your behalf or on the regional behalf to the policymakers like BEIS and Ofgem, and just communicate what are the things that need to be addressed to make community energy to thrive. So we're always keen to hear any specific, but also any general feedback you have for us through these events or directly. But then finally, massive thank you for joining us again and again, and today as well. But I wanted to also mention that this is my last Community Energy Forum, as I will be taking on a new challenge in the new year. But I'm really confident we're leaving you in good hands with a growing team of people who are going to support the community energy sector, region, and my colleagues as well, as we're looking at putting in place this really robust strategy to continue to support you from 2023 to 2025. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Anza. Yeah, we'll all miss you and your role at Northern Powergrid very much. But yeah, all the best for the future, and really appreciate the work that you and the team at Northern Powergrid have put into sort of help build up community energy across the region. So yeah, thank you very much for all your work and that, and to the rest of the team for supporting this work and this in supporting community energy. So yeah, thank you to Anza and the Northern Powergrid team, to all of our speakers, and to all of you for joining us this afternoon. So yeah, as we've mentioned, working with Northern Powergrid to refresh this strategy, and we will be sort of bringing more sessions in the new year. So we look forward to catching up with everyone then. Hope everyone has a lovely festive period, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks everyone.